All right, all right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Girls Night Live. I am your host, Sierra Parks. I have with me today an amazing presenter, but before we get that far into the program, I want to take the time to spotlight our partnership. This program today is brought to you by the Sisterly Love Collective, an alliance of women restaurateurs and food entrepreneurs across the city of Philadelphia, jointly promoting their sustainable practices. To learn more about Sisterly Love Philly, visit their website in the chat here. If you have any questions today, I will be moderating the chat for our presenter. Please feel free to drop in questions. We want you to maximize what's happening today, maximize the experience, maximize the information. So please feel free to ask questions as we go along. Today's speaker is Serena Kumara. Serena Kumara is an intuitive mentor and the founder of the Milk and Honey Project. She supports her clients in connecting them with their most authentic selves. The Spirit Center experiences she curates are designed to trigger thinking, feeling, unlearning, and relearning because Serena believes it is the true connection with your core essence that unlocks the door to living your most fulfilled life. Today's program is simple ways to add a little self-love to your day. No further delay. I want to welcome Serena Kumara to the stage. And again, it's good to see some familiar faces in the audience. Welcome in, drop questions in, connect with our presenter, and we'll be dropping in links along the way. Serena, come on to the stage.
Hello, hello. Hey, y'all, I'm so happy to be back. This is my second time with Girls Night Live, and I'm so excited to be with you guys, sharing some of my tips for how to add a little self-love into your life. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I'd love to see where you guys are tuning in from while I do that. You can just drop in some locations in the chat so I can see who all is here.
We got Florida, North Carolina in the room, Texas, North Carolina, all right, Jersey, PA, Nebraska, Virginia. I mean, there's not a state not covered. Maryland, yes. Staten Island specifically, Staten Island.
We need to know what it is. Okay, what time it is. Well, awesome. Well, I have lived in a few of those places. I'm originally from Jersey. I grew up in Virginia, and now I live in Dallas. And so I'm excited to have some people in those areas around. So a little about me, as Sierra mentioned, I am an intuitive mentor and I'm the founder of the Milk and Honey Project. So I curate experiences that help women to connect with who they are, right? Who they are outside of their titles, who they are outside of their limitations and what people say they should and shouldn't be, and what you want at your core. Then we try to identify what beliefs are getting in the way of you getting there, right? So is there something you believe about who you are or what you should have? And then we make our plan to get past those things so we can live a life that we really love. I'm doing it because I have done it. That's how the business got started, through my own journey. It started with the year of whatever I want. And it is essentially the year that I decided to get to know myself in a way that felt comfortable, right? And so I just did what it sounds like. I did whatever I wanted to do for a year. And what I learned was that I did not know as much about myself as I thought I did. And as a result, I wasn't as kind to myself as I could have been. And I was also not living a life that was authentically honoring my truth. And so here we are. And one of the things I am most passionate about is self-love and also self-discovery. And so let's just talk a little bit about what I mean when I say self-love. So when I'm talking about self-love, I am talking about building a relationship with yourself that truly honors you, right? Mind, body, and soul. It's how you care for yourself. It's how you treat yourself that affects the way that you show up to the world, and also how the world shows up to you is what I believe, right? And so just like with any other relationship, your relationship with yourself is nurtured in the things that you do daily, right? And so a lot of times when people talk about self-care, they think about, well, I'm going to do this task, or I'm going to have this self-care day. But are you treating yourself in a caring manner all the time, right? And so the things that I'm going to share with you today may not be things you've never heard of, but it may be a different way than you've thought about it, or possibly some ways to add them to your routine in a simple way. What I want to add is that this is meant for you to see and say, oh, I can add this to my routine. This will be helpful to me. This is not about creating some kind of self-love boot camp and pressuring yourself to do all the things, all the parts of the morning routine. If that doesn't work for you right now, this is not about adding more pressure to your life. Again, this is just supposed to be like pouring more into yourself. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we can start with the morning routine. Now, just having a morning routine in and of itself is so important. And I know this because I didn't used to have one, and I felt like I was catching up all day. That was adding to my anxiety, the feeling. It was also adding to like my negative self-talk, right? Because I never kind of felt like I had my footing, right? And so I felt like I was making mistakes, and it just was this cycle. Now, granted, you should be kind to yourself even if you're making mistakes, but we know life, right? The things when we do something a little bit off, it can really affect the way that we treat ourselves. So adding a morning routine where I just took a little bit more time instead of just jumping out of the bed and running to do what I had to do made a world of difference. So one of the things that's really important that I do is I move my body in the morning. Now, you notice it doesn't say any specific movement, right? It doesn't say to go to the gym or to go for a walk specifically. Those are two things that are great, but you can get benefits from moving your body just from stretching in the morning, right? You can get benefit from doing yoga if you have time. One of the things that I do that I didn't used to do is I will just dance. And we're talking about just intuitive movement. We're not doing an 8 count, right? I'm just talking about putting on the music that sets the tone for the day that I want to have or what I need to hear in that moment, and allowing my body to do what it wants to do, right? When I'm in the house by myself, we moving around the whole house. If I'm somewhere else, we putting earphones in, it might be, we might be in a closet, we might be in the bathroom doing a little shimmy, but the benefits are still there, right? So this helps us to connect with our body, right? To get to know our body, to build a loving relationship with our body, because in this society, especially as women, a lot of times we're either disconnected or we have negative feelings towards our body. So that's a beautiful thing. But movement in general actually releases cortisol and endorphins, and I'm not a doctor or a scientist, right? But essentially this helps us to feel more alert, full of energy, and ready to focus, which again is going to help us with those feelings of not having to catch up, right? And so movement is really important. The next thing that I find important is to spend some time outside. I mean, like minutes, right? If you can take a walk outside, that's a beautiful thing. And then that combines the movement with going outside. But this can be as simple as, rather than having your cup of coffee at your kitchen table, taking it on the porch, right? Or on your balcony. Going outside helps us to really ground ourselves. Connecting with nature helps us to release stress, ground ourselves, and it gives us an opportunity to just connect with ourselves, to just be with ourselves and hear our own thoughts and set our intentions before we start our day, before we really get moving, right? It's one of those things that even just a little bit of time is really beneficial. Now, especially if the sun is out. So I have this, I'm going to just read this. When the sun itself, there are certain benefits to us in our mood when we're able to be in the morning sun specifically. And so if you can take that little morning walk, that's going to be a great thing, whether it's 5 minutes or whatever, right? And then the last thing that I want to talk about for a morning routine is setting intention and using affirmations. And this is so important to me that I wanted to offer you some more ways to do it. So when I talk about setting intention, that is when you decide how you are going to show up to the day, what kind of day you are going to have, what's your goal for the day. And it can be simple, it doesn't have to be super drawn out, but it gives you like a goal post for the day. And I do believe that having an intentional plan or goal for the day does affect the decisions that you make throughout the day. And so even as simple as, I'm going to have a great day, That's an intention, right? And also affirmations are pouring into yourself, which support us in reaching that intention. So reminding yourself that you're beautiful and capable and kind, very, very important. Okay, so you can use your phone, super into technology. You can set, just with the iPhone, when you make an alarm for the morning, you can rename it. Like, it's where it says title, you can rename it to like Good Morning Gorgeous. And you can change the ringer to a song that pours into you. That's what found that out not too long ago. Life changer, because who wants, you know that alarm, universal alarm sound, like you hear it on someone else's phone, you have like a trauma response to it. This helps you to not have that negative feeling about waking up in the morning because you don't hear that honking sound. You hear the sweet sounds of Janae Aiko or whomever, right? Another thing that you can do on your phone is you can change your wallpaper. So you are probably scrolling through like Instagram or Twitter, and you might take a screenshot of a quote that really speaks to you. You can actually use the wallpaper template on Canva, which is completely free. And you can upload that picture onto that, so that, you know how like the background of your phone can distort, it can stretch it. Like a picture, if you make your picture your background, sometimes your iPhone will stretch it. It won't distort. And so the words that you have will stay in the frame size that you need them to be. And lastly, there are a bunch of apps that you can use. So my favorite is Selfish Babe for apps. They send apps to your phone. They got reminders. They got alarms. If you don't want to make up your own affirmations, Selfish Babe is the app. If you want to write that down, it's Selfish Babe. Now, also having affirmations in your space, I don't feel like it should be hard for you to run into like a positive or an affirmative word. I think that you should be able to look around and see something that affirms you. So I'm very into having, pictures in your home, like the words that are framed that say something encouraging. I'm very into the decor in your homes. I have a pillow in my house that says sacred space. I'm very into affirming yourself all day long, because what you see makes a difference. That also extends to like your mirrors and the different places that you can write things down. So you can get like sticky notes and write affirmations and put them all over your house. There's some in my kitchen now. You can use window markers or like window chalk to write on your mirrors and leave them up there. If you just need to write a little reminder like "you gorgeous" with an exclamation point, you could do that. Okay. And the last thing that I want to mention about decor, I really do think it makes the difference when you start your day with a mug that says "you got this, beautiful," versus like "today is going to suck, and if I don't have my coffee, I'm going to fight you." Like, I feel like those things are fun, but really, what are we trying to affirm in the morning? And then you can keep it simple and just say your affirmations. You can lay in the bed and say them when you're having your coffee. You can say them on that portion we were talking about on your walk. You can decide what your intention for the day is going to be. It doesn't have to be a big drawn out thing. And so I want to stop, because I know I threw a lot of information, because I just felt it was all important, to see if there were any questions that anybody had.
Hey, Serena, I have a question. This is TD.
I can't hear you. I can't see you. I'm sorry.
No, girl, that's okay. You don't want to see me. I just came back from a run, so we're not cute right now. We a hot mess, but this is all good. So look, I do have a quick question for you. What was the wallpaper app?
Okay, so Canva, Canva.com. You can create, they have templates for like phone wallpaper.
Okay, got it.
And it'll keep everything in the right dimensions.
Perfect. And I do want to just comment you in regards to when you stated choosing a song as your ringtone. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the R&B singer Mary J. Blige, but right now she got that song out called "Good Morning Gorgeous." Girl, I sing that all day, every day. I just go around singing "Good Morning Gorgeous." But no, it really does help. So I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome. And it's funny because that's not the one that I have as my alarm ringtone now, but she has one amazing from the same album.
Oh, girl, I'm going to switch it up next month. Thank you.
Thank you. We good to move on? Is there anybody else?
Hi, I'm Megan,
Hey.
and I just want to kind of add on to the song. There's this song, I don't know if anyone listens to Ariana Grande, but it's called Just Like Magic. And the first like line of the song is, wake up in my bed, I just want to have a good day, think it in my head, and it happens how it should. So that was my alarm for a while, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, that's another good one. She said, put my finger to my thumb, and that like
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So let's move on to what would have been the afternoon, but it's really things you could do throughout your day. This is probably, some of these are not as monumental maybe, but I really feel like when I talk about personal check-ins, I'm just saying, pay attention and be present. So this, as you're going through your day, so many times we're just in go mode and we're not allowing ourselves to recognize, wait a minute, like this task that I'm doing feels really great. I want to do more of this. Or this conversation I'm having is really draining. Like we don't even allow ourselves the space to identify what's happening. And that makes it hard for you to create what you want. If you don't understand, if you're not clear on what feels great to you and versus things that are like, probably don't want to do this. And so often we will wake up and we'll feel dissatisfied, but we don't know where to start. And that helps us to identify what things are working and what things are not working, even as it pertains to like a morning routine. Like, oh, I'm still really exhausted, or I'm still hungry. Maybe I should add food to my morning routine, right? That all helps. Another thing is to reset when you need it. We don't give ourselves a chance to pause. It doesn't have to be like an hour long, oh gosh, I'm tired, I need to take a nap, if it can't be that. But when you're going through your day and you're recognizing like, I'm beginning to feel burnt out or I'm a little foggy right now, take a minute to take some deep breaths, right? You can find breath work. I believe there's like visuals for breath work that you can find on YouTube, but it doesn't even have to be that serious. It can literally just be a deep breath. We're going back into that music. Do you need to put your earphones in and listen to that one song that gets you back going because that last meeting drained you, right? That's another way to do that. Do you need to take a beat and go step outside? I'm not crazy, but go put your feet in some soil if you can and ground yourself. It makes a difference. Especially if you have more things to do during that day, for sure. And then one of the most loving things that you can do is set and maintain boundaries. Boundaries need to be everywhere. Boundaries. Like I had a whole podcast called Brunch and Boundaries. Okay, it's a whole other subject, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can set boundaries in your life. Just so you know, just having a morning routine and maintaining that is a form of a boundary that you set with yourself, right? How you're going to choose to show up for yourself in the morning. Here are some ways that we set boundaries. It's in our thoughts. Negative thoughts come up, right? But it's for us to identify them. That's with that paying attention to yourself, and then choosing to replace them. So let's say you made a mistake and you can feel the negative self-talk coming, but you set the boundary. Oh no, we speak to ourselves kindly over here. And so what you replace that with audibly in your mind is, I'm capable and I'm powerful and it's okay. That is a really good example of setting a boundary. And I always say this to people: if there's an opportunity for you to choose to be hard on yourself, choose grace. Just choose grace. That doesn't mean that you have low expectations. That doesn't mean that you expect nothing of yourself or that you're not holding yourself accountable, but it helps you to move forward, because we know that rumination, they don't do nothing. Thinking about how bad it was or how bad it could be, that it doesn't get us anywhere. So I just wanted to add that. Another boundary that we set is with our time. Now, that is in some ways the easiest one, in some ways the hardest, because it's measurable, right? Time is measurable. So you can look and say, ooh, child, I spent 2 hours on this I don't want to spend 2 hours on this again, right? You can see it in front of you. But at the same time, because it is also an intangible, right? It's hard for us to set those boundaries because we don't necessarily know what things are going to be. But I will say this, one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is spending the time on the things that matter to you. And that's where that checking in with yourself shows up. When you look at your day and you see how you spent it, how much of it were things that were necessary, how many of those hours are spent on things that didn't serve you, that were unnecessary, and how much of it was pouring into you. And there's some answers there. And so that's when you can start to make the shift. Sometimes start small, right? It can be as small as, I'm going to just go ahead and end the phone conversation after 30 minutes instead of waiting an hour and a half when we've said the same thing, right? That's a small way to take your time back. Or it can be as simple as or it can be as big as, I'm turning on Do Not Disturb for this time and for this 4-hour block of time because I need it, right? These are ways that you set boundaries with your time. And then in terms of your interaction with others outside of time, saying no, right? We understand that saying no is important. So I would rather not spend the time saying that. I would rather offer some things, some ways to say no. If it's hard for you, if we're talking about the time thing and saying no, a really good way to do that is to set the expectation. If you're going to take the phone call, so maybe it's not, not going to talk to you. I'm going to only talk to you for 10 minutes, to set the expectation at the beginning of the phone call, right? Like, I only have 10 minutes to talk. Does that work for you, right? Also, just setting those expectations in other areas of your life can help you with saying no and also sticking to them. And then asking and accepting help. Asking for help, I know, is like next level for some of us. Just accepting it is just too much. But you have to pay attention to how you are feeling and how burnt out and what can change. And a lot of times there is more help than we recognize. There is more assistance for us that's like begging to be received. And we've got this block and we don't see it. And sometimes allowing yourself to be present, like we were talking about, and just being able to look around and see, like, wait a minute, this person here is trying to help me. This person is offered and I don't even see it because I'm so busy just going. So I want to take another pause for questions before we get into evening routine stuff.
Yeah, so one question that came in privately was, why do we find it so hard to say no?
Oh, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but
get on it, Serena.
It has to do with conditioning. It has to do with all of it. Can be as small as that saying, like, it's better to give than to receive. And then we have this belief that, like, if we're not doing, then we are not productive, or we're not valuable, or we're selfish. It's the things that we grow up believing. There's so many of them. But it only takes to start trying to do it to see the magic of no. Like, that's really what I would offer to you. Try it. You'll like it. Tell you.
And then another one, why is it so hard to ask for help?
Oh, I think that's some of it. And I think it's also trust and expectations. Like, I feel like nobody wants to be disappointed, right? It doesn't feel good. And it's also kind of vulnerable to ask for help, right? And so what happens if you're rejected? I know for myself, I often didn't ask for help because what would I have to know about our relationship if you said no? Would it be, okay, maybe it wasn't what I thought it was, and then I have to unpack that? And who wants to do that? I already don't have no time. Now I got to spend the time to unpack that. I don't have time. Like, that's one thing. And I think also there is this not wanting to be a burden. It's that same thing, better to give than to receive, right? Like, and that's not true. Sorry, just isn't. Balance is necessary in all things. And if you're imbalanced because you're only doing and you're not being or receiving, the way that you show up for yourself isn't going to be great. And it's going to impact the way that you show up to everything else and every other relationship.
Hey, Sierra, can I piggyback off of that with a question? Okay, so Serena, you mentioned the word expectations. I am a high achiever, so the reason why I don't ask people for help, because I know that they're not going to do it as good as me. I'm just being honest.
That is so real.
But girl, I'm the most realest person there is. But anyway, with that being said, how can I take a step back and accept that individual for who they are and trust that they are capable of doing the job? See, that's my problem.
That's timely because I just had a crash course in this, like the last several months of this, because I was like, you're too tired and maybe it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be done. My answer is prioritizing tasks. So maybe the person, accepting somebody for who they are is separate. I think we can accept people for who they are and honor that by not asking them to do things that are outside of their wheelhouse, right? But I feel like for me, it's about choosing the right tasks, right? If there are things where I'm like, look, can't nobody do it like me. This needs to, like, especially for my business, no. I'm gonna do this. But there might be this thing over here that I can delegate. There might be this task that I can delegate to free up time for this very important task that I need to do. Does that help?
Yes, that does help, because when you were saying that, I was like, that's a great idea, because then I won't expect so much from the person because I know that is that person within that task itself. Does that make sense? So in other words, I know what to expect because it's that person who was actually completing the task. Wow, I just had a revelation. Thank you, Serena.
Thank you for your question. And because that was real. I know a lot of people can relate to that. Like, you're just not going to do it like I'm going to do it. What are we going to do about that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, y'all. So let's move on to our evening routine. Full transparency, I still struggle with not just working until I can't work no more and falling into the bed and crashing. So these are, on a very good day, these are the things that I do routine. Taking the time to wind down is so important. I feel like it even affects my dreams, right? I know that part of that may have to do with eating late, depending on what people say. But taking the time to actually like be with myself, ground, release the weight of the day, release some of the stresses of the day before I take all the stresses into the bed with my dreams, that's important. So that can look as simple as meditation. You can find guided meditations on YouTube. There are more apps for that, or you can just sit in silence. Everything doesn't need to be guided, right? You really do know what you need. It can also be like if you are someone who, prays or journals or reads books or does devotional, like that is a good time to do that. Journaling, we're going to talk about a little bit more because there's a lot in that specifically. But for myself, one thing that worked, because I knew that I was not going to carve out a bunch of wind down time, was making the things that I needed to do more loving. So like my shower at night, it's candlelit. It was simple. I had way too many candles already, right? So let's use them in that time. We got the eucalyptus in the shower. I would suggest that you get it from the right place, because all eucalyptus is not created equal, just something I learned by accident, right? And have the lavender going for the calming effect of it. I'm playing the good music that I need to hear to wind down for bed. And that helps me to get into a better and deeper sleep. Because getting that sleep, getting that real rest is important. Getting your rest and the amount that you need has been linked to obviously alertness and being able to function, but like things like your heart and circulation, all sorts of bad things can happen if you don't get your rest. And so, a lot of times we have this idea of productivity, but I want to say to you that resting is productive. So if you take a nap, don't tell yours, because it makes a difference how we think of things. Don't say, oh, I wasn't productive today, I took a nap. No, that was productive because your body needed it, your mind needed it, and your spirit needed it, right? Rest. We're all resting in this room. And then lastly, journaling. Let's get into journaling. Journaling is so powerful because it helps you to release, it helps you to think, it helps you to reflect, right? One of the things that I use my journal for is to just reflect on the day, right? Like, what happened? How did it make me feel? You know, was there something stressful? Did I get into it with the man in the parking lot and I just need to let those feelings out on paper because I'm not taking them with me? But it's also a great opportunity to pat yourself on the back. Like, as you look at the day and the things that happen, sometimes you don't recognize, oh, wait a minute, I did this great thing that I wouldn't have done last month. Okay, let me congratulate myself. I didn't even realize it. Let me take credit for that, right? It's a great place to write the things that you can be grateful for, because gratitude just brings more good stuff. So reflecting on the day is a really great way to use your journal so you can process all of its happenings, right? Then there's journaling that is like specifically to be introspective on one subject or another. So a lot of times there are journal prompts. I tend to just Google them, or I will just have a thought in my mind. So one of the things when I recognized that I wasn't necessarily living life in a way that I was satisfied, but I didn't know what the problem was, I just wrote, if it was the best day in my life, like, what would that day look like? And I just wrote that out. And I learned a lot of things about who I am, the things that I want, how I was holding myself, just to hold myself back just from that prompt. So, you know, if you're talking specifically about things like, you know, looking back and processing old experiences, there are prompts for that as well. But that's a really good way to use your journal as well. And then one of my favorites is for manifestation and goal setting. No matter what your belief is about manifesting or goal setting, writing things down on paper helps to make the goal real, basically. Especially when you look back at it later on and you recognize, wait a minute, I set this goal and I hit it this month. That's one thing I was not doing. I was writing all these goals down and I wasn't reading back. I don't know. But when I finally started doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we are really out here making it happen. Like, I'm so grateful. And I was able to be more grateful. And I was also able to build a better relationship with myself because I was able to see the power that I had. And I was also able to be grateful for the universe, for the support. And I was also able to be grateful for the people in my life because I was able to look back and be like, on this day, they showed up for me, right? And in this relationship, I asked for a relationship like this, and here I am in one. So it's a beautiful thing. And so, questions about this one before I give y'all my final tip?
No questions on this one, Serena, but they're coming in the chat.
Okay. All right. You said they're coming in the chat?
Well, these are some ones I got for you at the end.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, then this is my very last thing. Be kind to yourself. Speak to yourself kindly. Like, I'm so into positive flooding. You cannot be too extra with the self-love. It does not matter. Put the sticky notes in your car. Set an alarm every hour that says you're beautiful and magical and wonderful. Irritate the other people in your house with the affirmations on the mirror. Like, do whatever you need to do to be kind and pour into yourself. It really makes a difference. And they're going to be grateful when you are feeling better because the way that you're showing up to a relationship with them will improve. The other thing is to make as many adjustments as are needed. Listen, today was a different kind of day. And so all this morning routine stuff that I normally do, we had one thing. We set intention. That was my morning routine because that's what I needed today. That's what I know that I needed for today. And so when you have those days, it's not about feeling like you failed or you didn't do the right thing with your morning routine. It's about being kind to yourself and acknowledging, wait a minute, I know what I need and this is what I needed today. So that is really what I have for that. Please keep in touch with me. Is this the good time for questions or should I do this first? Okay, please keep in touch with me if you're looking for me. They put my Instagram and socials, I'm sure they're in the chat somewhere. But if you are looking for like a mentor, specifically want to work one-on-one with me, that's something I'm really passionate about now. I'm loving doing. Please shoot me an email. To Serena@milkandhoneyproject.com. And you can learn more about all the stuff that I have going on at milkandhoneyproject.com. Thanks, y'all.
Woo, all right. Snaps and claps, Serena. We're not done yet. We have some questions in the chat. And the first one to backtrack is, how do you stay committed to journaling?
Ooh, Alarms and do not disturb.
Mm.
Like, it just becomes, in the way that you look at it. It's all about priorities. There are things that you do in your life that you do because you got to do them. You have to do them. You just have to see journaling as one of those things. And also I'll make it easier. So I use the notes on my phone sometimes just to get it out. So whatever you need to do, make it I'm all about convenience. Find a way to make it convenient.
And then another question is very specific. It's, I have a sister that just dumps on me and pushes my buttons. I don't want to be mean, but talking to her is such a drag. How can I set some boundaries? I've tried subtle hints, but that's not working, Serena.
Okay, so say it one more time.
Trying to set boundaries around having conversations with my sister.
So the first thing that comes to mind is, what would be the outcome of just not answering the phone sometimes? I'm not saying like block your sister, never answer her again. But I'm saying, but when you are reached, because so again, people have different levels of like understanding, right? People can only meet you where they are. And so if saying something to her that's like, hey, I don't really have the bandwidth emotionally right now to handle this, or like, I'm kind of dealing with something myself. Can I call you back? Can I call you at another time? That can help. But if that is not working, you also, like, it's a phone. You don't have to answer it. I hope
that's really reassuring, Serena, right? Because the phones now have become so much more than they were. And there's this inherent, I have to answer when it rings, or perhaps the person will call back to back, right? So that's a really good point. I also would recommend that perhaps you shut your phone off, at least maybe go airplane mode or silent mode after a certain point in the evening, because people will continue to push what time they call you at all into the night. And if you have a bedtime, or if there's something that you really want to do, watch, read, or journal, having those clear cutoff points on when the phone is just not working anymore is a really great way to set boundaries intentionally and say, hey, you called after my bedtime.
Yep. I totally agree, for sure.
Perfect. What other questions do we have? Let's see. Someone else says, yep, I think I have that issue. I'm too available. Absolutely. It's a thing. Perfect. What other things do we have? Any other questions that you really want to be intentional about your own self-care that Serena might be able to help you with?
Hey, Sierra, I have a question for Serena again. Going back to enforcing boundaries in regards to family members, correct me if I'm wrong. I put my family members in my schedule. So in other words, I look at them as a task. I don't know if that's, nice to say, but I give them a certain amount of time. And I schedule them per week, per month, or whatever. That's just, it works for me because I am an introvert and I am an empath. So I absorb, and I can only do but so much. And if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of others. So would you recommend that, actually plugging them into your schedule?
Yeah, and I'm also really interested in how you set that up and how everybody like how did that work? Just like from my own knowledge.
They already know. Well, see, I'm very direct and I'm strict too. So people, my family members, they know, okay, T is available on this day during this time. And I share that with them. Also too, I like to communicate and I like clarity. And if it's confusion, we don't rock. We just don't rock. And that's how I roll. So you can let me know if that's right, because I plug people into my schedule. And if I don't have time for you, I don't have time.
I don't disagree with that. I also think that's pretty high level in the boundary, the scheme of setting boundaries. That's what my thought was. Like, that's pretty up there. Like, we're all trying to get to that point. I think it's great. Because you're not neglecting yourself and you're not neglecting others and you're caring for yourself. And I bet you're ready for those conversations. You're not drained. So you're showing up to them fully.
Yes. And I shut down everything at 6:00 and I'm in the bed at 8 and I get up at 5. Yes, I don't play.
Okay.
Thank you. No, thank you, Serena. I learned a lot too. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So we are not ending here. We're going to end the live stream here, and we're going to stick around for questions here in the room. So I really want to say thank you so much to Serena for joining us today. Thank you all for tuning in, especially out there in live land. We hope that you'll join us again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern with a very special guest, Chef Jazz. She'll be making Philly-style cheesesteak stuffed peppers. Right now, if you're joining us on Zoom, don't go anywhere. You can stay, unmute yourself, hang out for the party, speak with Serena directly. For those of us on our live stream audience, we will say goodbye to you now, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone. Live folks, stick around.